Good afternoon, I'm Karen Vaughn from 106.7 WTLC, and welcome to Souls to the Polls, powered by the Indiana Secretary of State Office and the stations of Radio 1. I'm here with Kenneth Allen, who needs no introduction, with opening remarks.
Thank you so much, Karen, and welcome everybody to the historic Madam Walker building. We're so excited about the panel discussion we're going to have. As we have this discussion, which is about civic and get engaged and vote, we want to remind you or let you know about our Legacy Leadership Program kicking off here at the Madam Walker Theater. It's going to kick off on October the 26th. If you have not already registered, make sure you sign up and register by going to madamwalker.com. Again, that's madamwalkerlegacycenter.com. I apologize, madamwalkerlegacycenter.com. This program is open to all ages. We really want to engage everyone in being civically engaged. I think we have the youngest person we have registered right now is 17, and the oldest one is 71. So this is a program to get everybody civically engaged, because we realize and know how important this upcoming election is on November 5th. So make sure you sign up for our Legacy Leadership Program. Thank you so much to our wonderful panelists, and I'll turn it back over to Karen Vaughn.
Thank you so much, Kenneth. I am here with my esteemed panel. Thank you all for being here. I know you have busy schedules, especially during this election season, making sure that our community gets out to vote. I'm here with Kendra Nowell, the CEO of Cafe. Welcome. I am also here with the senior pastor of Fervent Prayer Church, Pastor James Jackson.
Thank you.
Senior pastor of Eastern Star Church, Pastor Jeffery Johnson.
God bless you.
Thank you. God bless you too. And last but not least, the president of the Indianapolis Urban League, Tony Mason.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I want to start my first question by taking you back to when you were that 18-year-old, 19-year-old, or 20-year-old in your first voting experience. Share with us your first voting experience and how it pushed you, encouraged you, empowered you to be the community leader that you are today.
Yeah, so my first voting experience, I remember it really well. I always saw my parents voting and would go with my mother to vote. And it took place in the elementary school I went to, right in my community. I was excited to vote because back then it was the lever and it pulled the curtains and it was, all of these things with it. And my first time voting, it was with my mother. And so that's something that I really remember, and pushing that on to my son. And his first voting experience was with me at Cafe. But really, it pushes me to let people know that their voice matters, their vote matters, and empowering to use this right that we have, that has been fought for us for so many years, to be able to be here.
Awesome.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me here. I'm grateful. I was 18, couldn't wait to start voting. And back then you had to vote close to your house. You couldn't just vote anywhere like it is now. And just standing in line, it would be cold outside, and seeing all the people who are out there in the long lines early in the morning and then later in the day. And that was a testament to me of just how important that was to people in general. And at 18, to see so many people braving the elements and standing in long lines just to cast one vote, I thought that was extraordinary. And so that resulted in me many, many years later getting involved more in the community and getting involved in the political process. So that had a big impact on me, seeing all that.
Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. I know all three of these persons who worked so hard in our community, and I'm honored to be here. I met the Reverend Jesse Jackson when I was 14 years old at Arlington High School in Indianapolis, Indiana. And Jawanza Kajufu says that when a black boy is 12, he gets so enamored by a man that he spends the rest of his life trying to be like him. And I wasn't 12, but I was 14, and the impact that Reverend Jesse Jackson had on me. And then at 18, I was at Bishop College in Dallas, Texas, a black college with so many militant-minded individuals who were part of that school. And then my mother and grandmother, they never missed a vote anytime at any place. And so all of that influence in my life caused me, one, to want to be a part of that. I don't want to have taxation without representation. And so, but also not just me going to vote, but trying to empower others and educate and enlighten others so that they can do the same thing. So that was my early experience with voting, and it still sticks with me to this day.
Karen, thank you so much for having me, and it's really an honor to be here with the other panelists as well. My first experience was as an 18-year-old, and I didn't really understand the gravity of that moment. I was so focused on being a high school basketball player and all of that other stuff, but my mother impressed upon me the importance of why I needed to vote, the struggles that she had gone through, that my grandparents and others had gone through, just so I could have the right to vote. And so it's great that I would find myself in a role like this so many years or decades later, where we're trying to do our best to inform and educate and to encourage people to get out to vote, and for me to see my sons to vote as well. Our youngest has voted ever since he's been age and eligible to vote, and then our oldest son, taking him downtown for early voting, and for him to see how easy it was, and to walk out of that room and say, "It's that easy." I said, "Yes, it is. That's why they're trying to take it away from you." And so, of course, it's a pleasure to be here. We want to make sure that people register and people vote.
And let's lean into that, talking to our young voters and our first-time voters. How are you engaging with them, and what are you learning from them as they learn about this process? Because we all can learn from each other.
From our side at Cafe, we have a Youth and Family Services Department. We work with a lot of the families and youth on the Far East Side. And one thing that we have noticed, you have to make it relatable to the young people. Why is it important to vote in subjects that they are interested in, things that will make an impact on their daily lives. And one thing that we have noticed is there's a disconnect there from it being important to them and some of the things that are relatable. So really breaking that down and educating them, and then going into the process of how do you vote.
We made that part of our program, our Clean for Green and Youth Jobs Workforce Development Program, and making sure that the young people that we had access to knew the importance of it, but also asking them, getting some youth voice, because that was something that a lot of the young people said that they weren't being heard. So we asked them questions about voting, about the presidential race, at the time, the mayor's race, and those kinds of races, and what they thought about it, and how we could make sure that they had the opportunity to get registered and to get vote and to vote. And it's amazing. Young people are really interested in the political process. They just need to know how to do it.
Yeah, I've been the pastor of Eastern Star Church in Indianapolis and Fishers, Indiana for 36 years. And it's been an encouragement to me that young people are engaged, they are informed, and they want to be a part of a church that's engaged and informed. And so what we try to do is to include them. We want you to tell us what you think. We want you to get involved. And so when we do voter registration and engagement, we let them lead the way, because they know what's going on. They're living in this world as well. And so it's been an encouragement to know that. The other side of that is one of the areas that we're one church in 3 locations, and one of our locations is in Arlington Woods in Indianapolis, 46218. And so very few people vote. So within our congregation, we got young people. Yes, we're glad to be a part of a church that encourages people to vote, to help people to get registered, to push people, get the souls to the polls. But then we're in a community trying to get them to not be so hopeless and in so much despair that they won't go vote. And so I get both sides of it where I am.
Really leveraging voter education and making sure that the issues are relatable to our young people, I think, becomes very important, because if they're not aware of the everyday issues that maybe their parents or other family members are dealing. We got to make sure that they're informed about issues. Make it connect with them. We've been leveraging social media especially because not all of our young people and first-time voters are really watching television, so to speak. So reaching them on social media, and then we have the exchange at the Indianapolis Urban League, and they have really been leading a lot of our voter education awareness efforts through the Urban League. And so they're not only reaching young adults and college-age students, but also younger people in the community.
You know, we talked about the barrier that is there and just really bringing that barrier down with information, education, and resources so our community will do more than just register, but to get out to vote. We don't have a registration problem. We have a voting issue that we hope to, in this conversation, give you the information and the resources to really empower you all to get out to vote, and then talk to your family, your coworkers, your community to get out to vote. You know, let your voice be heard. We hear that, but sometimes I think it just kind of feels as if it's an advertising message, right? And it goes over your head. You're like, yeah, I'll get to it. Then that day comes, and you're too busy or you're not empowered to vote. So how can we break the stigma? How can we tear down that barrier to empower everyone that is registered to get out to vote starting October 8th, which is early voting here next week?
I would say providing access, making sure that there's access there for everyone. There's so many barriers. So if you look at transportation as a barrier, for us at our center, we are an actual voting site. And so something that we have done for the past elections is working with the local apartment complexes, sending out buses, charter buses, to make sure that our seniors are there. But with the early voting, that there's awareness about it. Kind of like Tony said, your son said it's so easy. I don't think people are aware of that, and that brings more flexibility for people to kind of put it in their terms versus just on one day.
Well, I want to say that one of the things that I've tried to do, and Eastern Star Church has tried to do, is to remind people of our history. If you don't understand your history, you'll never walk into your destiny. And there was a time in this nation where black people were not allowed to vote. It was against the law to vote. So we were being taxed and then had no voice in where the tax money was going to go, what laws were going to be made, what policies are going to happen. And so just helping them to understand, here's the history of this. Here's why all of that agitation with protest and marching and going to jail and all the things that happened with the civil rights movement, this is what this is about. And now we have this opportunity now to go and vote, and we need to take advantage of that. And for me, I help them to understand there has to be a plan. There is, as Tony Mason was talking about, this attempt to suppress the vote.
Yeah.
Have a plan on when you're going to vote. My plan is on the first day of early voting, I'm the first one there when it opens. It's me and this old white lady. We always try to beat each other. So she's been first, I was second. I've been first, she was second. But that's my plan. Soon as early voting starts, I'm the first one there, because the nature of my job, I don't know where I'm going to be at any given time. And I don't want something to happen and then November show up and I can't get there. So I have a plan. You have to have a plan to make that happen. My grandmother, who was born in 1922, went to be with the Lord a few years ago. So she was born in a time that it was against the law for black people to vote.
Yeah.
Well, when we got the Voting Rights Act, she never missed a vote.
Yeah.
Never missed, and it wasn't just about the national, it was about the state and the local elections as well. And so that's what I try to push and press. But again, I'll go back to some people just feel so hopeless, and we got to help them to understand that voting does make a difference.
Yeah.
And try to push that into them. And sometimes it's not overnight, it's over time to get that across to them.
Well, you know, this is such an important issue because I do believe over the past decade, we have been ranked 50th or last in voter turnout across the country. And we know there are a lot of barriers and issues. There's lack of awareness, transportation, work, childcare, distrust of the system.
Yep.
All of those things come into play. But that's why we find ourselves where we're at in this moment, where the rhetoric and the politics have become so divisive. So we know we've all got to vote. We have to give a shout out to Indigo. We know that they're going to be providing free bus rides to the polls for the 10 days or so leading up to the election. So hopefully that will remove the transportation barrier for some. We also know that as an organization, we're trying to incentivize young people to go out to vote. We've even supported community organizations providing ground transportation in the past, and we look to do that again. And in fact, we're going to be co-sponsoring the upcoming gubernatorial debate this week that's going to be on Wish TV, because we're wanting to make sure that people are educated about the issues, from a multicultural perspective, so to speak. And so, we all have a part to play in making sure that there's a great turnout and that we get our young people out as well.
Turnouts are a little bit better. We have in excess of 600,000 registered voters, and the numbers have increased. But I think that a lot of people don't know that you can vote before November.
Yes.
And that's the meta-narrative all across the nation, and particularly in our community, that's when you go vote, and that's when we push it. But letting people know that leading up to that day in November, you can vote, and in Marion County, you can vote anywhere now. That's better than we had it. When you had to vote in your neighborhood, and you had to go early before work or try to get off work and rush to the polls, now you can go anywhere. And I think that media, being one of the 7 societal influencers, is a good way to get the word out.
Yes.
And to create some kind of a messaging that, it was November, but now it's always, from this day to that day, and to get that into our young people and make sure that this new generation coming up knows that there are more days than just in November.
The options for them are endless. Early voting is a beautiful thing. My grandfather instilled me, and my grandmother instilled in me getting out to vote. There was no not voting. It was you are going to go, so you just listened, right? My grandfather, to your point, we're just a generation or 2 generations removed from voting. And many times when you're talking to those that are just a little disenchanted with voting, and you say, listen, there's so many people that fought for us, for the right for us to vote. That's a long time ago. No, it was 1 generation or 2 generations back. My grandfather was born in 1897 and did not miss a voting election, local or general. So at this point, we are now in those chairs promoting getting out to vote to our communities. And one thing my grandmother used to tell me is, look at the ballot. What is on the ballot? What affects you? This is what is affecting us in our community. And just know also what's on your ballot and who you're going to vote for. So my thought in just knowing our local elections and what is on the ballot, from school boards to city council, and how it impacts us all, especially with the 4 of you in the communities that you serve, that are extended beyond Cafe and your congregation. So how does what is on the ballot become essential in the voting process, and teaching and giving resources to those that need to get out to vote, to give them another lens to look at it through?
I would say making sure there is some advocacy and education on the importance of participating in the local elections, and the direct impact of that on your day-to-day life, and kind of how that ripples outwards. Just from my viewpoint, I do see that there's not, some people don't understand the importance of making sure that you're connected in making those changes and voting locally. So that is one thing that I would say, putting some advocacy and awareness around that.
A lot of what's on the ballot locally, of course, the federal folks are looking at it, and fundamentally, when they start looking at what happens with school boards, referendums, all these different things that are on the local level, it helps to shape what happens on a state level and what happens federally, because those folks are always checking how those outcomes, what happened in this local election over here, what happened with this. And so people need to understand just how critically important that is. Even though it is a local election, it helps to shape what happens nationally. So if we're not involved locally, and then something happens nationally and we get mad, well, we didn't handle it at the local level. So it's always important to make sure that we don't take any election for granted, and every time those polls open, that we are out there doing our job.
Yeah, it's not just about personality, it's about policies. What are these individuals trying to implement that's going to impact people?
On our behalf.
And I'm for character now. I'm high on character. I don't think we need somebody that every time they open their mouth, they're lying. So now we don't know what to expect from them. But what policies are we trying to implement? What legislation is going to come out of this? And it's not just the national piece. When the former President Barack Obama ran for president, I met with him probably 6 or 7 times or more. One of his first stops was to one of my best friends, Freddie Haynes III, Dr. Frederick Douglass Haynes III. That was one of his first stops when he decided he was going to run for president. When he became president, I saw him one time after that. But you had Kenneth Allen up here. I can call Kenneth Allen at the local level who's running for office anytime. I can reach the mayor anytime. I can reach the city council people. And so locally, people will come. I'm born and raised in Indianapolis. And people will say, can you talk to so-and-so about doing something in our community? Yeah, I can. If you vote the right people into office, we can reach them at this local level. I don't know how often I or anybody up here, and all these are some significant personalities who are up here, are going to be able to get to the president when they need to. Yes, we need to get the right president in office at the national level, but don't ignore the state and the local level where we can reach these persons and empower them to do something for our communities and make the right decisions with that.
You know, it's great that there's so much interest in the national elections. But you know, there's a saying, politics are local. And so when you think about the issues that are important to each and every one of us, it really comes down to where your local officials stand, your local leadership. So you think about housing and everyone's struggling with skyrocketing rents. Think about the amount of runway that renters and property owners have been given to gouge tenants. When you think about education funding from the state and how that impacts your local school district. Think about roads, public transportation, you name it. All of those indeed become local issues. Now, local issues also definitely influence national policy. You know, so look at what we've been dealing with from an education standpoint. We've got book bans and all this discussion around critical race theory and all of that. So again, that fermented itself from local school board issues.
No, absolutely. And there's consistently with every election cycle being a rise in misinformation and how to vote and what to do when you vote, and really suppressing the vote, as you mentioned earlier. So when those that are watching, those that are listening, those that are here, what are your thoughts on empowering the community through that misinformation? What are the conversations that you guys are having, within your homes, within your organizations, within your church, to really to still empower someone that feels disenchanted because it's a lot of misinformation. I don't know where to get the real information, or my vote doesn't count. I'm just one person. But we've learned over and over again that one person makes a difference.
I would say on our end, we have a voice, but our voice is more powerful when we collaborate. in collaboration with other organizations, with the churches. The Indianapolis Urban Pastors Coalition actually meets at Cafe for their monthly meetings, working with other organizations coming together so that voice can be amplified into the communities. It might be distrust in Cafe from the community, but if we're collaborating with the Urban League, they might feel differently with the Urban League, or if they see their pastor there with us, it brings that trust. So amplifying our voice out to the community by collaborating, not just with one voice.
I've been doing a lot of training in propaganda analysis, and we've been called, of course, as black folks, we've been called low information voters. And I love information, data, and Amos Brown taught me about all that. He mentored me from afar. In fact, in 2008, he asked me to come down and call the election with President Obama when he was running. And I went down and was with him on that night. And it was just a great honor for him to ask me to come down there. But if you are called something as a low information, then you deal with that. I don't think we're as low information voters as people think. But with the misinformation, you just have to make sure that you're putting out the right information. For example, someone may say, well, you're probably, if you go to the polls, you're probably not going to be qualified to vote. Well, if you go to NASS.com, which is the National Association Secretary of State's, you can find out if you are eligible to vote before you get there. And so it's putting out information that's not misinformation that people need, so that when this propaganda comes out, one of the first principles of propaganda analysis is ask the question, is it true? And if you've got the information that dispels that, say, well, that's not true. I know it's not true. But if you're not in a place or putting yourself in a place where you can get the information, so you got to turn off the music for a minute, just a hot minute, and and make sure that you are availing yourself to so many different resources on the issues.org and so many other issues that resources that you can go to make sure you educate yourself, so that when misinformation comes out, if you have information and you're educated and you're up to snuff on things, then they're not going to be able to pull the wool over your eyes, as it were.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. There's a lot of misinformation. There are a lot of lies. My grandmother used to say, some people, they lie like they telling the truth. That's what my grandmother used to say.
I saw a lot of that last night.
Telling the truth. And of course, the scriptures tell us, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And in the 21st century, with the internet, everybody's on talking about something.
Everybody has an opinion, right?
So it's really an interesting time that we live in. For me, there are certain organizations that I trust, that I get my information from. I can go to the Indianapolis Urban League. I know they don't lie like they tell the truth. They tell the truth. Therefore, our community, they have a history. You can tell what people are going to do based on what they've already done. So the Urban League has a history of bringing us the truth and the facts so we can make the right decision. National Action Network, Reverend Al Sharpton, that's another person, another organization that I trust, that when they're speaking, I know this is going to be true. I've mentioned Frederick Douglass Haynes III before, speaking truth to power. I trust him and the organizations that he's connected with to get the right information, to get the truth. Kevin Cosby down the street in Louisville, Kentucky, who's the president of Simmons College and also a pastor of a church. These are people who historically have given us the right information so we can come to the right decisions, so we can bring emancipation. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So find somebody or some organization that has a track record of truth, and allow that to speak to you so that you can make the right decisions during the election and moving forward.
Well, you know, we're one of 92 affiliates across the country that are part of the Urban League movement. And so for people who are looking for information, and Pastor Johnson is right. The Urban League has been operating in this space for over 100 years. And so you can get plenty of information at nul.org. But from a local standpoint, we want to make sure that people are aware of the fact that you can go to your county clerk's office's website. We also have the Indiana Legislative Black Caucus. We've got the NAACP. We have so many sources for information out there. We just need to make sure that everyone is more vigilant and diligent in pursuing information. Do it the same way when we try to find an outfit online. We need to be searching for the truth in the same manner to fact check people. We need to be aware of issues, and we need to, as Pastor Johnson said, look at how individuals have voted in the past. You know, the actions sometimes speak a lot louder than words.
Yeah, and let me throw this in too. My wife has a degree in journalism from Ball State. And when people just go on Facebook and social media, they're not following the laws of what it means to be a journalist. They'll say anything at any time, and not just people who are online trying to act like they're reporters. And I know you know about this, Karen, but people running for office will say anything to get a vote. So just making sure that you have a place and a space you can go to get the facts to make the right decision.
No, absolutely. There's a lot of noise, from the candidates to those with their opinion online, that it becomes too much to where you're taking in the wrong information, where you really have to search for the correct information. It's like, we have a job in this too. The candidates want our vote. Well, you have to earn it. And you have to do your work and your due diligence. It's your job to vote effectively for yourself and your community. So just really taking that time, because, Pastor, there's a lot of noise out there. It's actually too much noise, but this is a forum in which we can help you kind of clear the smoke a little bit if we can. You all talk about all of your organizations and your churches and what you all are doing. If one is watching and feels compelled to want to do more, want to be more, how can they help your organizations with voter engagement and getting souls to the polls?
Yeah, I'll go. We have a couple of campaigns that are out there, so we can always take volunteers. We can be reached at cafeindy.org. Like I said, we are going to do some transportation initiatives. That's something that we've done in the past, and continue to do those with the emphasis on getting our seniors out, so we can take plenty of volunteers of helping us get souls to the polls.
I think just helping us to get the message out, to make sure that you are ready, to make sure that you know that you have some options. Of course, what we talk about on Sundays and what we encourage people to do where voting is concerned, but then it's important for people to go out and evangelize that. Evangelism is just not trying to get everybody saved. We want to make sure that we get everybody to the polls, so that we can have a better life. It used to be churches, the pastors, the preachers spent a lot of time black liberation theology. That's what was ministered on Sundays. And then things changed in the 80s and the 90s and the turn of the century. But I think we're kind of seeing things go back that way, where we're spending a little bit more time trying to help people, because it's gotten so crazy out here when it comes to voting and candidates and things that are happening, that I think it's our responsibility to make sure that people know, and that we get the help of people leaving the churches and going out and telling people, well, this is what Pastor said, and this is what Pastor, so that's how they can help.
Well, at Eastern Star Church, we're in Indianapolis and Fishers, Indiana. And as I mentioned earlier, I kind of allowed the young people to kind of lead the way for us. And one of the people that I have depended on for years is Reverend Nicole Barnes. And Reverend Nicole Barnes is with Faith in Action. And she's in upper management. I wish I could get her title right in my head right now, but I can't. But she goes around the nation, different parts of the world, and at Eastern Star Church to help us with voter engagement and voter enlightenment and voter education. And so anybody that wants, because at the end of every service, we got young people back there helping people to get registered to vote and update their registration and helping them to find the information that is necessary so they can be intelligent when they go to vote. And we would love to get any help that we can be. I believe, no, I'll do it like this. The vision of our church is evangelism and discipleship that has social expression of faith. That Pastor Jackson, after we save the souls and make the disciples, if we're not doing anything in community, something ain't right with what we're doing. So it's a faith expression, a social expression of faith in community. And we would love to get any and everybody to be a part of what we're trying to accomplish.
Well, as you know, we make a lot of information available, not only through our website, but through our social media efforts. Of course, we partner with Urban One, Wish TV, The Recorder, to get information out as well. So I want people to visit our website, indplsurl.org. Also, I mentioned earlier, the National Urban League has lots of information on its website. And then I also want to make sure that I mention the African American Coalition of Indianapolis, which has been around now for over 20 years. And there's somewhere in the area of 20 to 25 organizations that are involved in that, not just nonprofits, fraternities, sororities, professional organizations. So again, you've got a number of outlets and organizations that you can get involved through. I can tell you with our upcoming fruit distribution, next Tuesday we'll be getting out information about the upcoming election as well, and trying to make sure that people are informed. Hopefully they will be registered by then, but just trying to make sure that people keep this top of mind now.
It is truly, it takes a village, and everyone working together for the greater good of our community. And going beyond, helping one of your organizations, for one that feels compelled and wants to create change to actually run for office. Pastor Jackson, you have done that in the past. Tell us about your experience, what compelled you to run for office, and how you will empower others to do the same when they want to see change in their community.
Well, one is blood memory. My cousin was Dr. Ben Hooks, who was the president of the NAACP in the 1970s, and I was blessed to go to our family reunion, and I didn't know all the things that he had done politically, and he gave me his book and all that, and talked to me about political matters and things like that. So that's kind of the angel of Beale Street. That's part of my family too. So I think there is something to blood memory, and that kind of moves us to do certain things. And then as a pastor, and then getting involved with the concerned clergy, and then seeing the issues out here, and wanting to make a change. I was really interested in statecraft, and somehow got into the whole mayor's thing. But it's an exciting process, and I think from the beginning of our American culture, it was important for the folks who would run for office to come from the electorate. So the Bible and prayer and all of that in schools was not necessarily to get everybody saved, because it was by law you had to teach the Bible, you had to have prayer in schools, but it was to create a virtuous electorate. And then out of that electorate you would have good people, as Pastor Johnson was saying, people of character who would run for office. And so that was something that really helped me in studying the history. I wanted to know the history of black politics and things like that. And that helped me to make my decision to get into the political process. Although people say, well, pastors should not be involved in politics, should not run for office. But we see it all in the Bible. Daniel was a governor. We talk about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego going through the fire and how they came out of the fire, but most people don't talk about the fact that they were governors too. When Daniel became governor, the scripture says he pulled up his fellows, which is something we don't always do in our community. When one person make it, then you reach back and you pull some other folk up. So all through the scriptures, we see men and women of faith who are involved in politics. And I'm still very much involved. I still care about what happens. And I think that folks in the church, good people in the city of Indianapolis and across the state, If that's something that you have something in your heart pushing you to do that, then you should do it. And at least I will not be, the Lord willing, 80 years old, talking to Pastor Johnson. Say, I wonder what would happen if I would have done it.
Right.
And a lot of people do that. I'm not one of those people. I'm going to do it. And then, regardless of the outcome, I did what I thought I should have done.
And I haven't run for office. And I'm getting ready to have a transition of roles at Eastern Star Church. I won't be the senior pastor there much longer. And somebody asked me, am I considering running for office? And of course, I'm not. I'm not James Jackson. I'm not running for office. But I don't want people to get discouraged when they look at what we see on the news with politicians going at each other. I think sometimes some of the most capable people that could be a blessing to our community and our nation and this world, they sit on the sideline because they say, I don't want to be a part of that. Yeah. Because it turns into something that's really insane. But we need sane people who are running for office. And we need Christian people who are running for office. We need people with character and people with faith and people who care about the community. And if God drops that in your spirit and in your heart, then you need to make that happen. Reverend Jesse Jackson, I bring his name up again. I'm name dropping. Reverend Jesse Jackson used to come to Indianapolis all the time. When he would come, he would make me drive him around. So I used to drive Jesse Jackson around. And then he ran for president. And I said, Reverend Jackson, all the stuff they saying and the rumors and the lies, and how are you dealing with all that? He said it comes with the territory. So yes, when you run for office, as Pastor Jackson knows, some crazy stuff is going to be spoken. It comes with the territory, but we need capable people with character who are concerned for our community to run and not be discouraged by some of the things that we see in the news.
Well, when you think about the Urban League, our national president, Mark Morial, is the former mayor of the city of New Orleans. He's also was a state legislator, and it's not uncommon for affiliate CEOs in some instances to pursue public office. Now, I'm not one of those individuals, but what I would say is this, and Pastor Johnson's right, we have a lot of people who I think would be a great blessing to us and to the community, if they took that step to run for office. And that has to be a part of what we consider as a community. When we start talking about leadership development, it's not just individuals that would lead our churches and our community organizations, but also individuals that will run for office, that will represent our interests. Because in this moment, if we're watching what we're seeing, we have to have people who are willing to be in office, operate with integrity, and do what's right for people.
And
Absolutely.
It also gives you a totally different perspective on community politics and an appreciation for people who actually obtain those offices and what they go through just to get there. Anybody who wins a mayor or a president or governor or whatever seat you're going for, and what a person subjects themselves to get there, it just gives you a new appreciation for that individual. It takes a lot.
Yeah, and let me jump on that too, because once people get in office, we're not done for the next 2 years, 4 years, or 6 years. No, we have to empower them. Okay, well, we voted you in office, you should be doing this for the community. No, we should be doing this for the community. So we have to empower those persons to help get the right policies in place, to help get that legislation passed that's going to be more inclusive for everybody and not just for a certain color or gender. And so we just got to make sure that we got the right people running, and once we get them in that office, then we empower them to accomplish what they told us what they're going to do for our community.
That's absolutely right. And it starts with doing one thing, getting registered. The second thing, voting. And to your point, voting early. Let's see if one of us can beat you there.
No, me and that old lady. Wait, the old man and old lady, we gonna beat each other.
Do we have any questions from the audience or anyone that would like to answer a question? If not, we will go ahead and move with closing remarks. And that being, we have individuals that are watching now that are up in the air about, am I going to vote starting October 8th, early voting in Indiana, or even on Election Day? But I'm feeling a bit, I don't feel as if it's important for me right now. Or I'm trying to empower my friends and family who are saying they're not voting, and I want to be the catalyst to help them vote. What would you say to them?
My reply is short and sweet, and that is, your job is to vote.
Yep.
I would say to the folks who are watching, and certainly the wonderful folks who have spoken so wonderfully about these issues up here today, is something that you cannot afford not to do. There's so much on the line, and everything you care about and are concerned about, especially if you have children, not voting impacts all of that. And people would be surprised what the folks who are in office locally, statewide, or federally, the decisions they make impact our lives each and every day. And so you can't complain about things if you don't go out and vote. If you want to make a difference, the best way to make a difference is to go out and vote.
Yeah, and let me encourage all. I know we try to encourage not just young people, but older people too, to get registered, follow through, and go and vote. But I don't argue with people about that. I just try to speak the truth, and hopefully it'll make a difference. And it has. There are people who thought voting, it doesn't make a difference, that's why I don't vote. And it may have taken me years to get through to them, but I was able to get through to them. So don't give up on your family, don't give up on your friends and your coworkers. You don't have to beat them upside the head with it, but just speak the truth. And for those who talk about voting doesn't make a difference, I remember the former President Barack Obama said that when you talk about voting doesn't make a difference, how do we know if you never voted? So how do we know it doesn't make a difference if you never went to vote? So let's see if it makes a difference by all of us doing what we need to do, understanding our history and walking into our destiny and getting to those polls and making the right decision and following through and voting.
Every struggle or issue that our people are facing right now ties back to voting. Educational funding, the cost of housing, wages, access to care and to health, you name it. And so it affects each and every one of us. We all have a reason to vote. So know the issues, know where the candidates stand, make sure that you are registered by Monday, and make sure you go vote early, starting next Tuesday.
And also check your status, because
That's right.
I will share with you all, I check my status every voting cycle. And this time I checked, and I saw the word inactive, and I said, oh no, inactive? What is inactive? Then I checked my husband, inactive? I've never seen that before, and I posted it online. Others were saying the same thing has happened to them, including one lady said that she was listed as deceased. So don't assume anything. Check everything. Check your status on if you are listed as an active voter. As long as you see the word active in green, you are good. If you do not, you have a few days to set the record straight and to straighten it out, to register to vote, so you are ready the very next day, October 8th, to vote early, and then get everyone else to vote early and often. So I don't want anyone to be disappointed on the 8th when you could have fixed it today on the 2nd, right? I understand that we do have one question, and sir, if you could state your name and your question, that'd be great. We can hear you, just use your outside voice.
Okay, I've been hearing a lot of stuff going on about censorship, right? Censorship is the evil that kills a nation. But I heard people talk about misinformation and lies and should let all opinions come to the table without dissent. I mean, when you're back in one position and you don't want the whole thing to be shown, then that means there's something wrong. Praise God for the internet. Praise God for YouTube. I don't go there often, but the differing opinions is out there on every topic. So I think that's just change from the past, where you had to go and actually read a book. I love books. The information is there for you verbally, and the historical, chronological evidence is there for everybody to examine and then make up your own mind. That's the way America works. There should be no censorship, because censorship is a plague. When I heard people talking about he's lying, there's misinformation here, misinformation there, that's something that the Bible says, the wicked flee, but no man pursues.
Thank you so much for your comments, sir. We appreciate
I
you.
know you're wrapping up. We're not, that, when Karen was talking about misinformation, she's not talking about opinions. 2 + 2 is 4. If my opinion is it's 5, it's not 5, it's still 4. When people running for office are talking about Haitians stealing people's pets, dogs and cats, and eating them, and they make the story up, that's not an opinion. That's a lie. So we're not talking about not having an opinion. Everybody got one. We're talking about truth. So let's not confuse any of that. And there are people who, when you do the fact checking, they're wrong, they're lying, and a lot of it is intentional. And we need to be careful about where we get our information from. I'm done with that, Karen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, most definitely. And overall, the truth is, we all need to, what? Get out and vote. Most definitely. Thank you all for being here for Souls to the Polls. If we can give a round of applause to our amazing panel for being here today. And I'm sitting here thinking about the room that we're in, and when it was built, many of our ancestors were not able to vote, wanted to vote, could come here, could work, so like you said, pay taxes, but could not vote. And how far we have definitely come and how far we further need to go. So take advantage of all the opportunities of resources, being able to vote early and empowering those to do so as well. Thank you all for being here.